in coaching, as with philosophy, the first thing you got to do is really define the term, right? So click is it's almost universal. A lot of men come to us, I want to get this handled, I want this to click. There are a few buzzwords. So what does it mean actually when it clicks? And what are you looking for to click?
Anybody listening to this podcast, I would assume, is well coached and well programmed and taken, read some books on how to change your beliefs and your thinking and stuff like that, and took some programs and did a silent retreat 3 years ago, and so they're well theorized. And I think what that indicates is that they have enough theory. They don't need to be swamped in more theory or read more potentiality. They want to have it completely land in their psyche, so that now they're applying what they've learned all these years.
All right. Good afternoon and good morning, good evening, wherever you're tuning in from. Zan, this is the Friday before everything happens. So you've got your big 10, 11 days of delivery, guys flying into town as we speak. I'm curious actually to hear about the atmosphere and what Bucharest is like. How's the weather? How's the vibe? Uh, what's happening for all of us who are not joining the festivities this year?
Well, Bucharest in spring is always just a joyful experience. My studio is right by the architecture university. So there's students everywhere, spilling out on the street. There's film crews out there. They're filming something. I'm in the center square, where there's statues and and people gather, and all these young people sit around, and it's just a nice walking type of energy. And spring is great, and it's hot yesterday. It's a little bit cooler today, but the sun's coming out, so the energy's good. Guys are arriving in town. Already going out into the nightlife, according to their messages on WhatsApp. So yeah, we're ready for it. Tonight is the inauguration dinner for our guild retreat. So I'm getting prepared for that. I'm drinking my throat comfort tea.
You got to keep it smooth and going for the next
I have 10 days
week and a half.
10 days to talk. Yeah. So it's going to be, and I did a podcast this morning interview, like half an hour ago. That's why I'm a little late to this one. And I got this one with you, and I got dinner tonight, and then tomorrow is like it begins all the festivities and all the talking and jumping around and tap dancing.
Okay, so we'll try and go easy on you in this conversation. Yeah, it sounds like you haven't been caught up in the late night shenanigans yet, but
Not at all.
there's a lot of opportunity for that. I remember the weather this time of year. Even England right now is sunny. We've got beautiful blue sky and sun streaming in through the window. To close down the shades and get some good lighting.
This is still May, right? We're May, yeah.
Still May, yeah.
Yeah.
So I got a question for you to kick off. I've also got a theme.
Okay.
And basically what's happening for me is behind the scenes, I'm talking with people this week in private WhatsApp messages, guild members and so on. And they're sharing what they want to get out of Romania. And so I've got a theme for the episode. I'm just curious if there's anything that has been any particular topic that's peppered your conversations in the build up to the live stuff. Because obviously you've been spending the last 6 weeks speaking with applicants and so on for your event. So what's in the zeitgeist?
That's a good question. I haven't tuned in too much because I've been on a real spurt of writing, and so I'm just caught up in my own little imaginary world here. I haven't been social. I went out for dinner the other night with Deanna and a couple of friends, but I just have not abandoned my studio. It's kind of because I know I got this big onslaught of a week and a half of festivities with the guys. So I'm just trying to cram things in, collect my thoughts, do some writing, and then spill out into the evening air. So I've been talking to a lot of guys, but more it's logistics and that kind of thing. So
Okay.
I don't think I have anything fresh to add to the zeitgeist of Romania or what's happening right now, and I will within a couple of days.
Okay. So in a couple of weeks, the podcast will be all the fresh stuff that you talked about. But I've got some zeitgeisty stuff. I just want to say it's very remarkable that you've been able to focus up until the last minute in terms of your writing, because when I know that I've got a couple of dozen people coming into town, like we had in February, um, my distractions start firing off 2 or 3 weeks before it all happens. So my creative practice crumbled basically under all the people coming in. So good for you. So the topic I'll open up on this episode, which I've been speaking to this week in private, is the need for it to click. So
Oh,
these are the words that I'm hearing. I'm coming to Bucharest this month, or I'm spending this year. Basically, all of my social life, all of my resources, all of my spare thinking outside of work is dedicated to this, figuring out this topic that we speak about. And I'm absolutely needing at this moment in my life that things click. So I've heard from a couple of people that they're coming to Romania for 10, 14 days with the express priority that things click for them during this time. No pressure.
ah,
So I've got some thoughts on this, but I'm curious what you would say about this notion, because I get it. This is the kind of pilgrimage. We jet into the mythical other world, right? Outside of the normal people that know us, far outside the Shire. We go into this world of the Amorata. We meet the mentor, in his
right.
hat and his woman's scarves. We meet the other men who are aligned with this philosophy. We want something to happen so I can come home changed with the thing clicked. Um, what do you make of that word or that
Well,
desire for change?
I get the desire. I understand the desire for that because anybody listening to this podcast, I would assume, is well coached and well programmed and taken, read some books on how to change your beliefs and your thinking and stuff like that, and took some programs and did a silent retreat 3 years ago, and so they're well theorized, and I think what that indicates is that they have enough theory. They don't need to be swamped in more theory or read more potentiality. They want to have it completely land in their psyche so that now they're applying what they've learned all these years. I think that's the big thing, because otherwise they take a weekend intensive and it was inspiring and powerful, and they go home inspired and think, wow, that's incredible. And then their fridge breaks and their ex-girlfriend's calling them and their mother's sick. And you turn around, and that weekend that you had a great, glorious experience with, a band of brothers, fades away. And so you need another one, you need a refresher. So I think that there's a strong desire. That's why I'm leaning so heavily on practicality now, even though I'm very philosophically minded for myself. Like, I'm trying to understand this concept of the worship of beauty that I always talk about, which is front and center in my mind and my theory, and Longinus's idea of the sublime, and Plato and Plotinus, and and I'm trying to understand this and read and immerse myself in that. But everything I'm trying to say to men is practical. Like, enough theory, enough preaching, enough get over your limiting beliefs, enough be yourself, enough be authentic. They've heard all that, and now it's time to come up with something practical. So I think that's what they're indicating,
Mhm.
right?
So what about this notion of clicking? Because when I hear that, I think, and this is my experience of it, and seeing and caught up in a vortex actually of walking around in circles, trying to take action and be practical, and things maybe not going their way. Often the pressure that you bring to a trip or a workshop or an experience, hoping that something will click for you, is just the thing that makes it not click. So it can be a real double-edged sword. The strong intent that you resolve something in a period of time. What what do you what do you see around the word click? Like, okay, I did some practical things like you're saying. I got some coaching, some feedback. I did some new things. What does a click look like? How can a visitor ensure that a click happens?
Yeah. Well, it's you have to, there's a couple ways that a man can arrive to that thunk of understanding that hits him and says, "Okay, now my eyes are starting to be open." Number one, he can be dedicated to it and stay and and go and practically try and discover himself in this world. And if he continues that path, that journey, he will get his understanding. Some wisdom will come into him. He'll start to get the sense and ebb and flow how it feels socially. He'll start to understand it. And someday he'll look back and say, "Hey, at some point in my past that clicked." I was aware of it.
Mm.
Or they can see it in action and rub up against it and see, be inspired by others who are living the kind of spirit that you're trying to get clicked into. Because you can talk about it all day, you can read YouTube videos, but until you kind of like see it expressed, I guess I'm trying to say, I'm just, this is an echo from my earlier podcast I did today. We were talking about this. I'm trying to put it in words, but the analytical, theoretical consumption of this kind of information has got to give way to practical experience and practical application. Whether you fail or succeed doesn't matter. It has to be done. You have to do it. So anybody that wants to come this weekend, that's what I'm trying to foster in my What Would Zan Do live event that I'm doing starting Monday. It's just pure exercises. We've done theory, we've done talking, read my book. It's just pure, here's some girls. This is how, if I was you and I was single and I saw those two girls, this is how I would approach them. Watch me. Now you do it. Jordan, get up here, stand beside me. Just for fun, emulate my body language. You're going to have your own body language going forward, but just for fun, just step into my shoes and do the same thing I just did to those two girls. Now, okay, now Jordan, now I'm going to be one of the girls. Now continue, do it to me. And then the next thing is, okay, now Jordan, you be one of the girls and I'll do it to you. Like the way I approach, the way I say hello, the way I shake your hand, this kind of stuff. And it's just within one day when guys connect to that, they see, now I get it. Now, especially when they're one of the girls. When I do the exercise and they're the girl and I'm doing it to them, they go, now finally, after all these years, I finally get what it feels like. Now I understand. Now it's not practical for everybody to do that. So, and you can't film it. You can't, sorry, my voice is shot here. And I got to be ready for the weekend.
Yeah, good time for the week.
Yeah. Sorry. So, because I don't know what I'm saying. You kind of have to be near it or see it or have spent a lot of time time and attention with yourself.
I'll share a few thoughts that I had on this topic of clicking and see if you riff on some of these.
Okay.
Make sure you have a lot of garlic and honey from the sounds of it. over the week. I mean, in in coaching, as with philosophy, the first thing you've got to do is really define the term, right? So click is it's almost universal. A lot of men come to us, I want to get this handled, I want this to click. There are a few buzzwords. So what does it mean actually when it clicks? And what are you looking for to click?
Right.
That's my first question. So is it that your own rhythm of your interactions with women actually clicks in a new way? Um, that can be a little bit problematic because even if I'm in a moment where I'm clicking with myself and I'm in a sense of flow, I run into a woman who doesn't click even with her own self. You know,
Mhm.
she herself is awkward. She herself is not at all prepared to meet me. She has, as a beautiful woman in my own life recently told me, um, every time a good-looking guy speaks to her, makes an invitation, she freezes up just because of her own past and her own uncertainty.
Wow.
So it's like, do you live in a world where you imagine that one day all of your interactions with all women is going to click and they're always going to be smooth and you're just going to be really good at handling every woman you come across? I
Right.
think that's such a false illusion to hope for, that you're naturally going to feel unclicked and rusty. And I think for the best of us, we can run into a closed door, right? You turn around and make a comment and she's not clicked with her own self. Not, she has no kind of spark or anything to do with you or me. And it's like, you know, what can you do in that kind of situation?
Right. Right.
So, so, so that's an exploration for a kind of realism, right? What does it mean that your interactions always click? Are you looking for more interactions to click more of the time? Are you looking to try and click with everyone, or are you looking just to capitalize on the clicks that are already happening?
Yeah. Good
And
point.
this is where I see so much to gain because a lot of men that I speak to uh, have already clicked multiple times in their own lives. They click ongoingly very well. There might be one or two adjustments, but not even valuing the moments of click
Well,
and
that's
when it all feels in flow and comes
yeah.
together. So when I first met you in Brazil over the next few months, one of my big realizations was that I was always good at this. And all of the things that I'd learned, or principles and ways that I could show up, you know, new options that were green lighted to me. This is something you can say to women. This is some way of being that you can have. Um, I'd already done many of them many times in my life, but without
Mhm.
giving them the appropriate value. So I would discount all the moments that have naturally been in flow and clicked and connected with women, with myself. And I would look at all the moments where it's awkward and stilted and rusty and jarring, and I would just focus on the ones that are negative and discount all the ones that are positive. So
Right.
as an example, I'm at my family's house right now and I'm going through all my belongings, all the remaining belongings of my childhood and teenage years, because they need to be chucked out, right? It's just
Wow.
one of those moments. I found and I read through the journal, the diary that I wrote in when I was 19 and I did my first ever trip to Southeast Asia, a solo backpacking 3-month excursion on my own, and I wrote a diary almost every single day. And then in the last week, it just tailed off. I can remember those days. I think I was just exhausted by the whole thing. And I read through this diary. I had, ever since making this trip and during the trip, I had this deep, pervasive feeling that I was lonely, that I sucked, and that I was alienated from some greater sense of fun. And everyone was having fun. And I was not having fun. And I felt fenced in and alone, that the good times were happening outside of me. That was my memory of that trip, and that was my feeling as I was having the trip. And I read through this journal, and I read the things that I did day to day, and virtually every single day of the trip, I was out drinking with a whole bunch of people. I was partying until sunrise. I was losing my memory in my wallet or whatever. I
Wow.
was, there was this girl and this guy and these friends. And then I look in the back page of the journal, and I've got tons and tons of email addresses from people all over the world. You know, the old Hotmail. This is like very
Yeah.
early 2000. Everyone's Hotmail address from all over the world. And I'm thinking, how could I feel lonely in the midst of that? It was one of the most social experiences of my life. And what discounting must I already have done of all of the great things that were already happening? I was internally moaning to myself that I didn't have something. When if I just could open my eyes, I realized that almost every evening I was having some kind of great social interaction and not valuing it.
You can't see it when you're in it, you know?
Yeah. And so it goes, so many of us click more of the time. We're just completely unconscious of us clicking.
Exactly. Like in the podcast I did earlier today, they basically said that, you know, Zan, we look at you as having lived this mythic life. And I'm thinking, I aspire to a mythic life. I hope I have a mythic life. I'm trying to get a mythic life because I sure don't feel it. I don't feel mythic, you know? And then you look back and you think all the things you did and all the things you experienced and all the things created and stuff like that. But my argument would be that you never feel like you never click that final click, that solution. Now I can be confident. Now I can strut myself. Now I can put myself out there in the right way. Now my real self is present. You're an aspirant. You're always aspiring to be. You know, we look at the Amorata archetype, which is a very defined archetype in my mind, and it's very real. And it's one of Plato's forms, the Amorati. And I want to be like that guy. I am not like that guy, but I want to be like that guy. And so I want to live an artful life. And, you know, I think it was Annie Lamott, the writer, said, you know, life is what happens when you're making other plans. You know, you're planning to create this become this artist of doing something. But like I said, your fridge broke and your grandma's sick and you got to eat. And so while you're making these plans to do all that, a year goes by, another year goes by, another year goes by, another year goes by. And I think it's that's the way it is. And that's life. How it works. You never feel that final click that you've arrived. You always think, I mean, this is why I'm fighting so hard for this book I'm writing, because I'm trying to understand something that I don't understand, that I wish I understood, you know? And so I don't think you ever get that final click. Everybody said to me, when did you finally get it? Oh, I never did get it. I'm still trying to
Well,
get it.
that's the question I'm queuing up to you. Was there a moment in which it clicked? Or was there a moment? I know that's such a simplistic question, actually. I want things to click. Did you click? Are you a clicked person? Um, do you think there was a moment in which it clicked more than it didn't? Or there was a sense of
Well,
click that kind
yeah,
of went on and then never quite went off again in the same kind of desperate, lonely way that it might have been off before?
there were moments of epiphany where you, you, you're thinking about something or you're trying something and something hits you and you go, now what I finally get this. And there's been many moments like that. And you're going to have that if you're a student of life and if you're an inquirer,
Hmm.
if you have an inquisitive approach to your life, you're gonna get all these aha moments, as they call them, right? Um, but they accumulate, they stack, and you don't see them stacking. You're not going to have 10 aha moments in a row. You're going to have one or two, you know, in a weekend that you spend time with a girl, and you go, oh, now I'm starting to get this. I'm starting to understand it. And as they stack over the years, you don't realize it until, like you, looking back in your journal, you look back and wait a minute, and then you think, if only I if only I knew then what I know now, you know, you'd be on top of the world. You'd own the world. So it's like you can only see it in hindsight. It's like an artistic movement. The Impressionists didn't know they were Impressionists until post. You know, it's described and named after. This was a time, an era of such and such. And so it's like your life. You look back and you think that you're just going to have. I wrote in the Alabaster Girl that life is a series of brilliant moments interspersed with long periods of doldrums. You know, that's what it is. So you never get that final click. Even like Carl Jung, you know, who thought about all these psychological things and dug around in the psyche of the mind with his pickaxe. Even the last things he wrote was, "Man, I tried my whole life to figure this out, and I just failed completely. I didn't understand anything. I tried to explain things, and I didn't get it myself."
So
So
here's my second line of inquiry on the word and the topic of click. If it's not a click in terms of your outside connections with women, in our case, is it a click of a fundamental kind of self-acceptance, self-love, understanding of real confidence, peace of mind, the restless, self-judging self is finally put to rest. Is that the thing that clicks?
yeah, I think so. I think it's realizations that all we're. Why are we trying so hard when everybody's struggling? So I think like one of the infinite clicks that I've had was that, and at what point I don't remember, what year I don't remember, what age I don't know, where you just realize that I'm not the only one that's insecure and thinking and having FOMO and thinking everybody else is confident and alive and interacting socially and having a good time. I'm not the only one that's thinking that. In fact, everybody we're talking to is in their head, trying to be the best person they can, be liked, be funny. They hope that they went to the party last night. They hope that that they feel like they said some stupid things and they're kicking themselves the next day. Everybody, including all the women.
Mm.
So that's kind of a click that came to my mind. Why am I trying so hard? When everybody's in this mindset? And so just relax. Just like say your little stupid thing, and then I said something stupid last night. So just an example, but I think there's two types of people. Maybe there's more, but simplified, there's two types of people. There's people who are inquisitive about their life, and they're curious about how their life is going to go, and they want to shape it in some way. They want to at least make choices that head them toward what I call the artistic expression of themselves. They want to learn about themselves that way and grow. And there's other people just which is cliche, which they just react and they head towards simple things. I want to get a hot girl. I want to get a hot car, and they don't think beyond that. And they watch Netflix at night with their junk food, and they repeat this, and they don't have this introspective quality of life. They don't self-examine, as Aristotle advised. They just they exist. It sounds like I'm being very judgmental here when I say that, or arrogant. But
I'm trying to be objective. I really enjoyed the way that you said the artistic expression of themselves. And I think I've heard you say that a number of times before, but just then I listened different or it landed differently. Um, it so in my discussion with one of the guys about it clicking, I sent him a long message in response. First of all, for him to inventory and become more aware of the moments when it clicks. And then the sense that for a lot of us, you add up the moments in your life where it has clicked. And most of the men that we work with have had a succession of moments in their lives where it clicked. They felt flow, they felt attraction, it was mutual, it turned into something, relationships that
right,
whatever happened next, right? But most of us have got, so add up the moments where it clicks and you realize that in your life there are moments where it clicks, the good feelings, the flow, the connection to everyone is present. And then there are moments where it unclicks and it's absent again, right? So I said, look, you're going to come to Romania, you're looking for a click, and I think there are some fundamental questions you got to answer. Yeah, I hear that. And you're going to go back to where you live, and probably for the next 5 or 10 years, and listening to you probably next 30 or 40 years, you're going to be in experience where the click comes in, the click comes out, and you're going to be, um,
yeah,
flipping like a coin between two different sides. One moment it's light and you're understanding and everything is smooth. Another moment you're in the dark and you're scratching your head again. So how do you deal with the unclick side of the spectrum? that I think is one of the most important questions, because a lot of people, this is where, let's say you go through a 3-month period and nothing clicks, and you're just sat in the darkness, and there's something that's not aligned, and your connections with other people don't feel like they click because something in you doesn't click. That can then become the source of its own huge neuroses, which is I'm broken, I've got to figure this out. How can I change myself, optimize myself, do something better, maybe get some coaching, get some performance coaching, try and change everything, workshop, workshop, workshop. And before you know it, you've gone into this self-development descent where it's not
Mhm.
self-development from a frame of, I'm curious to get a little bit better or get some skills, but it's this overarching hunger to um, get away this jagged feeling that we feel within our own selves. But what can happen is if you leave it alone, like if I don't watch I don't know, the infield videos because I'm feeling lonely and desperate, if I don't try and figure out how to take, if I just let it go and accept the fact that I don't feel like I'm clicking in my own self, it'll turn of its own accord. And so this, what you say about having an artistic expression of your own self, my advice to the guys who are going through a period where they don't click is to express their non-clicky, sucky nature artistically and just come on the group and share it. And in that way, by practicing your artistry, you I mean, my definition of art is that you make something that mirrors a state of reality as it is without trying to change it. It's a faction of truth, which is made beautiful.
Yeah.
So you, even though you feel like you're not clicking, you have you got to present that without trying to change it. So built into a personal artistry, I think, is you striving for a good relationship with the ways that you suck, and in so doing, you actually click into connection with yourself again because you're not trying to change yourself and your
You're,
suckiness.
you're
You
observing with curiosity your state,
yeah,
not judging
yeah,
and trying to scramble. Like you said, it goes a spiral of neurosis because I got to get out of this state. This is so you're saying just observe it, recognize that things come and go in waves, and this too shall pass, right?
yeah. I mean, that's kind of a spiritual, unattached. I mean, that's the
That's
base of
the Stoic
this.
way, yeah.
And then what I think we're both saying is go a step further and say, how can I actually embrace this moment and make some light and jest of it in a way that might be useful to another
Make
person?
some art.
Exactly. Can I wrap my suffering up in a kind of a question or an expression that's going to bring others together, bring me back to others? Well, then you click again.
Right.
So that, I mean, this is wholly in the sense of clicking, the artistic. See yourself artistically.
Yeah.
I, in wrapping this up, I want to share actually about what was a click for me. I wonder if you have a particular highlight from your personal reel of perhaps there was a moment that gave you the greatest sense of recognition,
Yeah.
coming home within your own restlessness and your own questioning.
Me? No, I think it's just small little moments of reclamation. Um, I'm thinking this is the human condition, and this is ancient, this is age old, where people go through periods where they're not feeling aligned, and then they have Maslow's peak experience type of moment where everything's like fully aligned, and they feel like glowing and can do anything, and you think of a Christianity and a walk with God. There's Christians spend their whole life trying to have a communion with God, and they feel when they're disaligned from that or misaligned from that, they feel like they feel like they're sinful or they're not connected to God, and they strive for it. They pray for it. They want to reconnect, and then in moments they feel like they're really connected, and God is in communion with them. So we have this in us. It's part of our psyche, I guess. And the extended version is like you're misaligned, but there's moments when people go into deep depression, which is super misalignment. And then
Mhm.
so um, for me, I'm constantly doing little rituals and little concepts to try my best to realign with my true north. And by that, I do my Amorata ritual in the morning, which is sit with my notebook and look through it, all the pages I did for 20 years, um, or I'll listen to some music will recenter me, make me realize, okay, it's gonna be okay. So, you think you're worried about this, you're worried about that, but it's gonna be okay. And so I'm always trying to find ways and times to do a little ritual to recenter myself and remember and to remember what brought me to this point and have gratitude to everything that I have and this has happened to me. So it's just a recentering of, but consciously choosing it and in contemplation. So I sit in my rocking chair and I look out the window and I think, okay, like I have turmoil or anxiety about such and such. And what's the real, so I talk to myself and I hang out with myself, I guess.
Mm.
And
I
music is
think
one of the greatest things to recenter yourself and to lift your mood and to make you realize that we're all going to die one day and we're not dead yet, you know? So, yeah.
we have to commission a playlist. What to listen to when you want everything to feel okay by
Well,
Zan Perion.
everyone's is different. The three things I listen to when I'm writing, and I crank music when I'm writing, believe it or not. I
Yeah.
music crank. I listen to gospel music, like old gospel.
Mm.
I listen to old outlaw country, like Willie Nelson, and that kind of thing. And I listen to um, I listen to Alex Cruz as a DJ. I listen to his smooth music, and I have it cranked in the background as I write. I have to put on my speaker and let's go. So I need music when I'm writing, which is strange. So I'm not saying anybody else's music would. And there's music that would take me back to Nicaragua when I was writing my book, or Panama, and I'm sitting there in a little room, and there's a song I listened to over and over and over again as I was writing The Alabaster Girl, and it comes up in my playlist. And I'm like right back there again. So music is the most direct way we have to connect our psyche to the transcendent, to the divine. I think it's the most direct way into our bypasses all analysis. You know, so
You just reminded me of a little project at some point I put together, an Amorati mixtape, and it's virtually done, but I wanted to write it up, and then it's just one of 500 projects, that are always competing for attention. Um,
wow.
I I want to say at the end here that the thing that clicked most for me, which I've taken a note of here, the thing that clicked most for me was realizing that I could trust my own feelings as a way to navigate, particularly dating and relationships.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I didn't know that this was an option for about 30 years. And then bit by bit, I realized, well, actually, you know, the inner feelings I have can be a kind of uh, honing, homing system, a navigation system. It wasn't just all this reactivity, like, oh my God, life is painful and heartbreak sucks. It was, I could fine tune and walk through life based on intuition and gut feeling, and even trust my own arousal and my heart, right? And it wasn't like that for a long, long, long time. And
Yeah.
I worked quite hard to get here. Um, but the click that I could trust my own feelings to tell me the accurate situation that was going on with another person, when there is attraction and it's mutual, versus when I think she's hot and I want something and I'm projecting or I'm hoping for attraction or I'm forcing a sense of attraction, that's kind of day or night liberation, because I can feel when something naturally arises and she's into it as much as I am versus my hope. And then the question is, guys come all the time, like, what is she thinking? What is she thinking? Well, I don't ever have that question, what is my girl thinking, or what is this woman I'm dating thinking? Because I can feel what she's feeling through the through the air. Like I feel what she's feeling. So whatever she's thinking is inconsequential, largely. But because I'm feeling what she's feeling, I know already what the state of play is. So I don't have to overthink and second guess and try and figure out what's going on in my partner's mind, which is, can you imagine how many hours, how many weeks of life are now freed up from that pain? And then the whole thing of, what do I do next? What did I say? How do I escalate this? How do I take it to the next level? What's my next move? I don't have to think, this is what I would do. This is what Zan would do. This is what this guy would do. This is what this person would do. And strategically select and hedge and try and bet on the best move forward that limits my chances of failure.
Right.
There's a lot of mental hedging that guys do. I want to send the text that has the greatest percent. Hey, chat GPT, tell me which of these 4 text messages got the highest percentage rate of, she's going to like it and respond. You could go down that rabbit hole and waste your life with mental suffering, right? Or, well, what do I feel like I want to say next, regardless of outcome?
Right.
And how do I bring that artistically based on what I feel? Do I want to go really fast, or do I want to go really slow? Do I, what do you call it? Be very direct about something, or be very indirect? Like whatever. My feeling will tell me the route to take. And that, I think, for me is the biggest click, because there's not a second guessing. There's not a, what should I do differently? Oh my God, how do I choose the right thing that's going to get me the result? Like all of that has gone from my mind. I would say this is the biggest click. Whether I'm better with women or not is kind of, who cares? Most of the mental suffering is gone, and I can feel when the real opportunities are actually happening.
Yeah, that's
And
great.
that feels like click enough for me.
Yeah. Well, it's similar, I think, with what I'm talking about. Everybody comes to that conclusion at some point if you keep studying human nature and psychology, right? I think. Maybe not, maybe.
You can certainly get lost down the route of psychology and have things not click, right? You think they click, but reality and life situations show you that they don't click at all. All right. Yeah, questions in the comments. Let us know if there's any further we could go to clarify this concept for you in a way that would be useful. And maybe I'll give some homework, actually. The basic homework here is, sit with a pen and a paper, have a bit of a self-ritual, maybe go to a coffee shop and just write down 5, 10, 15 moments in your life where things really clicked in the domain that's important to you. What did you feel? Where were you? Who are the other people? And how were you on that day? How was your breath? How was your kind of worldview? What were you thinking, feeling, seeing on that day? That contributed to a click. And then for the guys that did the embodiment with me last month, you can take these memories of things clicking onto the mat and move your body in ways that unfold more of the state of clicking or peak performance or flow. So the click is something we can work on amplifying daily if you know the embodiment.
Great.